to make sure that once it's repealed, that things will go in the favor of economic development and safety for the farmers and everyone else that's around here.
Thank you. The next candidate will be Matt Zeller.
Absolutely, I support it. And I'm not sure why my other opponents don't. If they're for safe and reliable drilling, why not just put some provisions in to make sure it's safe and reliable? Here's the thing about it. See, the 2005 energy law that made it exempt did another thing. It made a permanent moratorium on drilling in the Great Lakes. Now, the Great Lakes are our largest source of fresh water in the country. Why is it safe enough for our Finger Lakes, as it's currently practiced, but not safe enough for the Great Lakes? And that's why we need federal regulation of this. Because the gas companies are the one who wrote the 2005 energy bill that allowed them to do this practice. Do you realize that hydraulic fracturing as currently practiced uses things like strontium-90, which is radioactive, benzene, hydrochloric acid? These things could irrevocably damage our aquifer. We get one chance to do this right. I want to make sure that when we're doing it, it is with the engineering solution that allows us to do it without irrevocably damaging that aquifer, which would cost way more to clean up than we would likely ever be able to extract from the reserves down there.
Thank you. The next question for our candidates is, do you support the right for working men and women to organize, and then do you support a living wage? And the question goes first to Janice Volk.
I do support the right to organize. I do support a living wage in whatever form it should come, or the people dictate that it should come. The thing that I stress that we have to be careful of is if we're talking about unions and the right to organize, we have to be careful that as a collective unit, that their voices, their singular or individual voices, are not drowned out by supporting people that are going or running for Congress and therefore taking money from tobacco companies and oil companies and things that are not conducive to the way that we want this country to be run. So what ends up happening is, yes, I do believe in the right to organize. However, that spearhead, once it is organized, we will have to keep a very fine watch on.
Thank you. Next candidate to answer the question will be Matt Zeller.
I absolutely and unequivocally support the right of labor to organize and workers to organize, and I absolutely and unequivocally support a living wage. See, to me, it's a holistic issue. If you're a family out there and you're trying to work 2 to 3 jobs to barely survive because, that's what Americans do, we don't just take handouts, we work for our food, and you're not able to put food on your family's table, you're not able to be there for your children when they come home from schools, it's because your wages are not allowing you to be able to actually take care of your family. I want to be able to make sure that you're there for your children when they get home from school, that you're actually able to take care of them and make sure that they're doing their homework, that you're on top of their teachers and making sure that they're actually educating your students. And then when it comes time to feed your family, that the option is not simply a quick meal at McDonald's, but it's actually a meal around the family table. Only if we get back to the practices that supported the middle class are we ever going to be able to make our country strong and solvent again. And this is the first 2 steps along that path.
Thank you. Next candidate will be Tom Reed.
I think this is an excellent question that distinguishes me from my opponent, Matt Zeller. I strongly support the right to unionize in the workplace. However, I do not support card check, which is the process of eliminating the secret ballot process for unionization in the workplace. I know Matt Zeller is a supporter of that. I believe that the secret ballot is the correct and honorable way for individuals to express their intention whether or not to unionize. So there's a complete difference between Matt and I on this issue. When it comes to the living wage, I am a proponent and will always stand with the private sector. What I see with the arguments for the living wage is bigger government taking over and trying to regulate the private sector. That is not true capitalism. That is not free market. That's what I support. I do support a minimum wage. I believe the abuses that were eliminated years ago with that legislation were reasonable. I have no objection to that. But to arbitrarily step in and regulate the living wage is beyond government authority.
Thank you. The next question for our candidates is, are you in favor of privatizing Social Security? And we'll ask that question first to Matt Zeller.
Absolutely and unequivocally no. I'm the only candidate up here who will tell you that I am not going to allow that the option for privatization or implementing a means test would ever be allowed to be brought to the table. See, for me, Social Security is a sacred trust. Most folks in here have paid into their entire lives and ought to be there for you when it comes time for you to retire. And I don't think a government bureaucrat in Washington should be the one who decides whether or not you actually should be able to receive your Social Security benefit. Now, my solution for being able to grow ourselves out of the coming problem of insolvency is simple. Get more people back to work so they can pay back into the system. It's worked for the past 75 years. Why not continue what keeps working? Or as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I will never let privatization happen because this is simple. If we were to privatize Social Security, Wall Street would be in charge of our retirement. And we all saw what happened in 2008. Imagine if that had been your retirement fund. You would not have an income right now. I'm the only one up here who will stand up for your rights to make sure you can retire with the money you put into that system.
Thank you. The next candidate to answer the question is Tom Reed.
I want to be very clear on my position when it comes to privatization of Social Security. My opponent, Matt Zeller, has claimed that I have stated my support for privatization. I am 100% opposed to it. So let us be clear and let the record be clear from henceforth. The issue that I put on the table is that we need to have an open and honest debate and dialogue about the Social Security issue. My opponent, Matt Zeller, has said, I'm going to leave it alone. That's not the responsible action of a leader in Washington, D.C., because we are dealing with a situation where Social Security is bankrupt. I acknowledge that reality, and I will tell you that my mother raised the last 6 of us in our household. I'm the youngest of 12, and my mother raised the last 6 of us on a Social Security check and a military death benefit check. I know what it means to receive that check, and I won't violate that trust. But what we have to do is have an open and honest debate. We cannot limit the debate by saying that is off the table, that is not allowed to be discussed. To me, it has to lead to solutions through debate.
Thank you. The next candidate will be Janice Volk.
Privatize Social Security? We're well on our way. No, I don't support it. We need to get back what our presidents have been borrowing from that Social Security fund. I know that the equation's out there that is going to end because there's no money into it. My opponent, Tom Reed, says that he's pro-life, but in the same instance, he will say, yes, it is okay to have abortions during certain instances. Our children are also part of this equation. The money that had been taken out and used for whatever games that our political leaders had used it for in the past needs to be scrutinized so it doesn't happen again. And we need to get that money back. And privatizing Social Security is not the answer, and having government's hands into it is not the answer.
Thank you. The next question is, do you support public financing of elections or some way to limit the influence of money on politicians? And we'll ask that question first to Tom Reed.
I do not support public financing of election. We are facing, like I said at the onset, an American bankruptcy, and the costs associated with that are things that we cannot go down the path of. What I do support is full disclosure. I do support limitations on campaign donations. I am a strong and ardent supporter of having complete transparency when it comes to our campaign. And I will be a strong and firm supporter when we get to Washington, D.C. I have pledged on the campaign trail months ago that my schedule will be up on the internet. Who I meet with will be on the internet. How I vote will be on the internet. Everything will be accessible. And I applaud the people that step forth and say, if you vote this way or you take this position, how can you rectify that when you had a conversation with this individual? And I will be accountable to you because I will stand up for you at the end of the day.
Next candidate to answer the question will be Janice Volk.
What a welcome contradiction that is. Not only did my opponent talk with people, he took money from the tobacco company, the gas company, the oil company that did the oil spill. Even went to Chicago to get money out of the district. I haven't taken a dime. I cannot be bought and paid for. You cannot buy my individualism. When we go into an office like this for service, your slate has to be clean. Mr. Reed has taken monies from these people, and therefore they want something in return. I have not even filed the FEC paperwork, which means that I have to let the Ethics Committee know that I received more than $5,000. I am living on a shoestring budget because I refuse to be bought and paid.